Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Eddie Liger Power Hour. Today, we're going to be talking about Andrew Huberman and his recent, or not recent, but viral neuroscience takes, his analysis of dopamine and human brain chemistry. I see we already have some strong opinions in the chat. We got John, who says Huberman is a shill, often using cherry-picked data to support his conclusions. He abandons the standard conventions of science, using conclusions from flimsy studies to pretend as if he has unlocked the secrets of the human mind. His pedigree as a Stanford professor gives him a veneer of credibility, while he expounds on topics he has no expertise in, which is the case for a lot of people. The case for a lot of people who graduated from these Ivy League schools, which, really you can only get into if you're well connected. Even if you are valedictorian, have a really good ACT score, if you don't have enough money or know the right people, you're not getting in. So a lot of Stanford, Harvard grads kind of have that veneer of credibility, as well as anybody really who has doctor in front of their name. Just look at Dr. Jordan Peterson, right? Is he a real intellectual? Is he a real rigorous scholar? Of course not. But he jumped through enough hoops to get the word doctor next to his name, and it gives him a veneer of credibility. Now, I think Andrew Huberman has a lot more credibility than Peterson, right? I think he's a lot more useful than Peterson, gets a lot more right than him. But there are still various things in Huberman's analysis and his obsession or hyper focus on dopamine that I think are worth criticizing. And I'm no neuroscientist, but I'm very interested in human optimization, so to speak, as an athlete, as a performance athlete, and as someone who does political education. Even I'm trying to always get the most out of my brain in terms of learning and sharing with you guys what I'm learning. So I think it's interesting, and I think I'm qualified to give at least a few critiques of Huberman. John finishes his critique here saying he promoted his girlfriend's startup, Belcampo Meat Company, a fraud that was exposed for repackaging meat from various sources and claiming it was organic, pasture-raised, and of the highest quality. Yeah, and he's definitely selling products, right? And when somebody's selling you a product, when somebody's commodifying their scholarship or commodifying information, you always have to be a little bit skeptical, right? It's always good to be a little bit skeptical because they have conflict of interest there. They're trying to sell you something. So got a couple of videos of people who are more experts than me in this field criticizing Huberman, and then I'll comment on those and give my own analysis here once we start the show, or once we get into the meat of the show. I suppose we've already started the show. This is just the intro of the show. Ross Iron Coil, Huberman's an asshole. That's my profound insight on him. He does come off that way to certain people. I honestly like Huberman. I've used a lot of his advice in my life, but I just think there's some problems with a lot of the things that he says, and the fact that a lot of people take his word as gospel, when of course science doesn't work like that. Science is to be debated, science is to be discussed, science is to be criticized. And my hope is to criticize Andrew Huberman so we can sublate him, so we can learn from what he gets right and criticize what he gets wrong. Solidarity, comrades. Solidarity, Jai. Good to have you here. Lulz HQ. Good to see you. Jacob, back as usual. Thank you for being here. Reclaimed, how's it going? Jimmy, how are you? Eddie revealing himself as a transhumanist. Yes. I think the future is when we all become robots. Like what that Klaus Schwab video where he says, everybody's going to have to get an implant in their brain eventually. Otherwise, they won't be able to work hard enough, and they won't be able to make money for the capitalists, and they'll be useless. They'll no longer be able to sell their labor in the market because they'll be outcompeted by people who do get implants in their brains. That's my new ideology. I've given up on socialism. I just think we should all be slaves to the labor market, and we should all become robots so that we can better serve our capitalist overlords. What's up, Christopher Romero? Teddy Ursa, one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. Good to have some Pokemon in the chat. The class of 2022, Stanford was over 1/3 legacy, which indicates 1/3 of admitted freshmen, an increase from the previous year. Wow. Yeah, there you go. There's some statistics to show that what gets you into the Ivy Leagues is being well connected. Hello, Peng. Hello, Fargo. Oh, I was just in Fargo, North Dakota. That's awesome. Good to see you all. I'm glad you're here for this momentous occasion of Midwestern Marx applying Marxism and dialectical materialism to the field of neuroscience, more specifically viral online neuroscientists like Andrew Huberman. So enough of me rambling. Let's play the intro so then I can start rambling again. Alrighty, I was able to get up and get some water while the intro played. And an energy drink, but we're not going to talk about that because I'm addicted to them and I just want to pretend I'm not and ignore all the recent scientific studies showing that energy drinks are terrible for you and they cause your hair to fall out. So I'm just going to keep pretending that those studies don't exist and keep slamming these energy drinks to give myself dopamine. Dopamine. Zero Deca, thanks for being here. It looks like some people are excited for the Andrew Huberman takedown, but can someone explain the new Jordan Peterson tweet format? I don't get it. He's losing his mind or something. Jordan Peterson has been spiraling ever since he left the academy and sold out to these right-wing think tanks. But his new tweet format is just bizarre. Like, I truly don't understand what he's trying to do with this. So let me show you all what I'm talking about. If you don't know, he's been tweeting like he's trying to write a haiku, but he doesn't know how haikus work. That's the only way I can explain it. What is a haiku? Like 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables? Ask yourself why we are pursuing policies that are clearly insane, unwanted, impossible, and ruinously expensive. Article. Like, what? I made a tweet responding to him, basically in the same format, calling him a dumbass, because he is. But we're doing the same constantly. Leave us alone. You fear-mongering, power-hungry, petty, I'll control everything for the people's own good, tyrant. Enter, at Mayor of London. Like, what is this? Do you just not know how haikus work? Are you trying to take a turn and become a poet, a political poet? But you don't know how many syllables are in these words? Like, what is this? Why are you tweeting like this? Why would you not just tweet in a way that's easier to understand? This literally just makes it harder to understand his tweets, which are often cryptic and weird anyways. Well, lately he's basically just become a freaking stereotypical right-wing conservative pundit, conservative commentator, and grifter. Doesn't even really talk about like human psychology and such anymore. But no idea what's going on with that. No idea. So maybe he's back on drugs. That could be. Let's boost the response tweet. The response tweet to Jordan Peterson? Okay, let me find it. Appreciate you guys for wanting to do that. Liger, Twitter. Let's see here. It's going to take me a bit to find it. I did do a TikTok. Basically just showing people my tweet about Jordan Peterson. Gosh, I tweet way too much, y'all. No, I don't tweet too much. I zeet. I be zeeting. I exeat. They can't stop me from exeating. Why is Twitter called X now? That's so stupid. Actually, the main or the wrestling event that decides the Olympian or the world team member, like the finals of wrestling, the biggest event with the best wrestlers, is called Final X now. They renamed it to Final X instead of just the Olympic trials or world team trials. Like, do people think X, just the letter X, is like futuristic and you can put the letter X by anything and it all of a sudden becomes cool and modern? I think that's pretty much what it is. But goodness gracious, I tweet so much. Where is it? Dang it. All right, this is kind of a waste of time. There it is. Found it. So this is my response tweet to JP. It got more traction on TikTok than it did on Twitter. But Venezuela, he said, the Labor, meaning the Labor Party, will turn Great Britain into Venezuela, in his weird haiku format. So I said, Venezuela's revolution is rooted in their unique history, which is why it's called the Bolivarian Revolution. Suggesting that Great Britain could replicate this revolution makes no sense, dumbass. There you go. There's my response tweet to Jordan Peterson in his own style. And there's a link. Go ahead and boost it so we can secure the ratio on Jordan Peterson. Also, smash that like button. Like, comment, share the stream. Appreciate anybody who does that. Musk zeeted, he yeeted everything tweeted. I like it. What's up, Cobra? Good to see we got our moderators in the chat today. Appreciate you all as always. All right, let's get into Andrew Huberman now. I've kept you all in suspense long enough. So we're going to start out with this TikTok from a fantastic TikTok creator.
Let's talk about
that was sent to me by our boy Sebastian in the Discord group chat, or the Discord Stream React channel. So if you want to join our Discord, just become a $1 patron. That's all it takes is $1 Patreon supporter for 1 month, and then we'll never kick you out of the Discord chat. You can be in it for life. So become a Patreon supporter to join our Discord, and then you can send me stuff in the Stream React suggestions, and I respond to at least 60, 70% of it. You know, that's really where I get a lot of the videos for the Power Hour that we react to. So this was sent to us in the Discord by Sebastian, by this fantastic user who, again, I didn't know of, called Slugtown. And it seems like they have a background in neuroscience, because their critiques here are pretty deep and are pretty solid. So it also seems like they're an anti-capitalist. Like, if they're not coming at this from a Marxist perspective, they're at least coming at it from an anti-capitalist perspective, which you have to do, dude. You have to do. This is the one thing. I mean, I learned a lot of things from studying healthcare administration in grad school. But the main thing I learned is that if you don't have a Marxist or if you don't have an anti-capitalist perspective, it's impossible to understand the current field of healthcare, the current field of science. Like, so much stuff is infected or influenced by the market, by capital, by the major corporations that control these industries or that fund scientific research, right? Science can't just be objective under capitalism, right? It can't just be an objective analysis of the world. The kind of science that gets published, the kind of research that gets done, the kind of even sometimes the conclusions that they come to are going to be influenced by money. They're going to be influenced by capital. They're going to be influenced by the market itself. So this is a great example of that. And this is someone who seems to be privy to that, whereas Andrew Huberman is absolutely not.
The politics of the dopamine mythos. There are two major players that I see spreading this dopamine mythos. One is Anna Lemke.
So she's explicitly talking about the politics of this obsession with dopamine. And we know as dialectical materialists, as dialecticians, that everything in this world is interconnected. And, there are relationships between things. And if you offset one of the things, it might change another one of the things. So basically what I'm saying is that if you isolate dopamine, if you only look at dopamine and say dopamine is all we're going to focus on in terms of human happiness, human productivity, human flourishing, you're missing a lot of other factors that relate to dopamine, whether external factors or internal chemical factors.
Lemke, a Stanford psychiatrist who wrote the book Dopamine Nation that came out last year, and her colleague at Stanford, Andrew Huberman, a neuroscientist who has maybe the most popular health and self-improvement podcast right now and loves to talk about dopamine.
If anyone out there is feeling underwhelmed and kind of like life is no good, etc., chances are your dopamine system has been pushed too hard.
I think it's really important to look at where these two professionals are coming from. Huberman was born and raised in Palo Alto and has his own lab at Stanford, and Lemke runs Stanford's addiction medicine clinic. Her book is based around case studies of her patients, and two of her main characters are wealthy men who work in Silicon Valley. Palo Alto, the suburb of San Francisco where Stanford is located, was built by Leland Stanford in the 1800s when he was trying to move his family away from the workers who were protesting outside of his house. Stanford was obsessed with racehorses.
Isn't that perfect? What a perfect origin story for Stanford. He was trying to move away from the workers who were rioting outside of his house because he was pushing them so hard.
And he developed something called the Palo Alto system.
Leland Stanford and Charles Marvin, his head horse trainer, were looking for a new way to train the youngest, fastest horses in the world. And this is how Palo Alto really starts, is as a horse stock farm. And that Palo Alto system, where they're applying new kinds of science and profit-directed tools to create life and monitor the production of life, underlies Palo Alto, even if people don't know that history.
Led by infamous eugenicist David Starr Jordan, Stanford University became a West Coast center for eugenics. They were obsessed with figuring out how to optimize the population and identify people who had good genes. Malcolm Harris actually says in this interview that if you go to Stanford now, you'll see a bunch of really tall people because being tall was supposed to be a mark of good genes. And in the 50s, the college had to special order 7-foot beds for their incoming freshmen because they were selecting for height. Anyway, this is where
people put too much emphasis on genetics in general, too. Like, genetics do matter. Your genetic makeup does matter, but the fitness industry talks about it like it's the end-all, be-all, right? And I guess if you're bodybuilding, right, like the difference between the top bodybuilders is so small. A lot of times it is, in fact, genetic. But, like, the new epigenetic research is showing that your genetics will literally change based on your activity. Like, if you work out a lot, your DNA will literally change and you will pass on that workout gene to your kids. This is what the field of epigenetics is showing. And this goes back to like what the Soviet Union was looking at when they were trying to make a dialectical analysis of the human genome and genetics back in the day. And they were mocked by Western scientists for thinking that the genes could change based on, your environment and your activity. But that's what new epigenetic research is showing. And it goes the same for negative traits. Like if you're an alcoholic, you can possibly pass that on to your kids. But genes are malleable. Humans are malleable. And the idea that even, your genetics are set in stone isn't entirely true. And you would have to work out repeatedly for 7 years before your genome starts to change and before you could pass that on to your kid. But it can change. And, I do think this hyper obsession with genetics that we have in Western society is an undialectical way to look at genetics, right? It's the idea that you just are what you're born as. You are this individual that you're born as, and, you inherit these genes, and there's nothing you can really do to change it. And there's nothing that your environment can do to change it. It's the liberal idea that human nature is stagnant. We can't ever have socialism because of human nature, when the Marxist view is that human nature is malleable. Human nature changes with different environments. And, that's what's shown by reality. And I do think this hyper obsession with genetics that exists in liberal society in a lot of ways is rooted in eugenics and is rooted in eugenics research to try and maximize the human genes. When in reality, to maximize human genes, what we should try and do is just create the most positive environment that we can for people. Create an environment where people's needs are taken care of and where they have opportunities to flourish and opportunities to develop themselves and opportunities to spend time with family. And, this will impact the genome in a positive way, according to the newest epigenetic research. But these eugenicists say, no, let's just kill off the people with the bad genomes, or, some people are born to be on top and some people are born to be on bottom. It's all about the genetics. It's stupid. It's just liberalism. It's liberalism being read into genetic science, or being pushed into genetic science.
Where the modern IQ test comes from, the Stanford Binet intelligence test. It was a way to identify human potential at a young age and optimize human beings in much the same way Leland Stanford did with his baby racehorses. Through a critical disability lens, I see the word optimize as pretty much always a red flag, marking deeper eugenic roots. Optimization is always about getting the most profit and productivity out of your workers. In the early 20th century, this optimization...
And that is so true, right? And that's what I see in all of Huberman stuff too. It's not how do you optimize your life, it's how do you use dopamine and optimize your own chemicals to work as much as you can, to grind as much as you can, to be in the workplace focused, creating all that money for your boss, and then going to bed on time so you can get enough rest and wake up and do it again. It's all within the framework of a capitalist work week. How do I maximize my dopamine to not want to jump out a window during the workday when I'm alienated and being exploited? My uncle thinks Huberman can solve all my issues. And maybe you could show your uncle this video, but it works the opposite way too, where then all of Huberman's advice for increasing your dopamine levels, it's stuff that's really, 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 really difficult for people who have a 9-to-5 job to do, or for people who work all day and have a family to do. Like I've told Noah the carpenter who works for Midwestern Marx, or with Midwestern Marx, one of our directors here at the Institute. He has to wake up every day at like 4 or 5 a.m. if he wants to read and write before he goes to work at like 5:30. And he was having problems with memory and problems with focus. I'm like, well, Andrew Huberman says go outside and stare at the sun. He's like, dude, the sun's not out at 4 a.m., right? And I don't really have time to go stare at the sun for 30 minutes. I got to get my kid to school and go to work and, do all these things that a normal working class person does. So I've taken a lot of Huberman's advice. I've implemented a lot of Huberman's things in my daily schedule. But I don't have a 9-to-5 job, right? I'm not working like a lot, most Americans are. It's like if you have limited time in a day, if you're exploited at work and alienated for 8 hours a day, when you come home, and I think of Noah when I think about this, you're going to want to spend time with your kid, or you're going to want to spend time with your family. But Huberman's like, no, get in an ice bath, sit in an ice bath for 30 minutes like Joe Rogan, who also doesn't have a real job. And then get out of the ice bath and your dopamine will be shot up so you can work more, so you can ignore your kids and keep working. And him and, as you'll see later, Jordan Peterson are totally against any kind of quick hits of dopamine, right? And they badmouth social media, TikTok, and they're like, these are just quick hits of dopamine that don't take any effort, so they're bad. It's like, well, what about being with your family? What about hanging out with your kids? That gives you dopamine and serotonin, and you don't really have to work for it. Is that bad? I mean, according to this capitalist framework where humans are just designed to keep their dopamine peaked so they can work all day. Yeah. I mean, and Huberman doesn't have a family, I don't believe, or a wife, for what it's worth. He's just a robot.
And was top down. Organizational.
Thank you so much, Apolitical Idealist, for the $2 super chat. I appreciate that.
Psychologists researched ways that managers could impose this on their workers. But since the 1980s, when Reagan and Thatcher shifted government policy toward individual responsibility by deregulating industries and cutting social safety nets, sometimes called neoliberal austerity, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, we've been encouraged to internalize the striving for optimization and do it to ourselves in order to keep up in the workforce. Enter Dopamine Nation. Anna Lembke's book is essentially a thinly veiled rehash of the Protestant work ethic for the neuroscience age. And I know this because she's done a ton of interviews with Christian pastors where she basically admits it.
Of course, the Bible talks about the morality of all of this, and that's essential. And of course, through the lens of religion, that's how we understand what we are now understanding through neuroscience. They're converging and coming together.
Her book demonizes pleasure and valorizes suffering. Lemke suggests that we've become too soft.
So really here, there's no critique of the system, right? It's taking as a given that we live in capitalism, that our current system is what it is. Now, how do we maximize, how do we optimize workers in this system? How do we optimize the process of production so that the workers are producing as much value per second, per minute as they possibly can for the owners? Right? So there's no questioning, maybe humans aren't made to work 40 hours a week, right? Maybe the fact that we don't have enough dopamine to stay laser focused 40 hours a week shows that the work week shouldn't be 40 hours a week. But when it comes to these neuroscientists who work within the framework of capital, who work within the framework of the system that we currently exist in, there's no critiquing the system, kind of like Jordan Peterson's psychology. There's no criticizing the system or wondering, what systems came before it and how humans' brains operated in those systems, or how humans' brains operated in primitive communism before class society even came about, right? There's none of that. It's just, how do we maximize people's dopamine when they're at work so that they can focus for the boss and so that they're not so depressed that they, start leaning towards suicidal thoughts and tendencies. And I see Jamie talking about Adderall and drugs that boost dopamine levels and give your dopaminergic system a stimulating shot. We're going to talk about that a little bit later too, because I mean, really, if the whole goal is to, and Huberman says that he's against Adderall, right? He says he's against ultimately, like, he's not against it being prescribed and it being used by people who need it. He says he's not, but ultimately he kind of claims to be against it, claims to be against pharmacological intervention, when if you're advocating for people to just spike their dopamine as high as they possibly can, there's nothing that's going to do that more than a pill, right? You can take as many cold showers as you want. The maximum that you're going to boost your dopamine is 2.5%. Adderall boosts your dopamine by 10 times. Right? So really, his framework of analysis that's just aimed at boosting dopamine so people can be good worker bees is pro Adderall and is pro pharmaceutical industry. And I don't really think it makes sense that he claims that he's against these drugs being used on a mass scale. But, and my view on it is, with the current system that we have, if you are someone who has to work 40 hours a week, 60 hours a week, whatever it is, in order to get by, and you need Adderall or you need a pill to do that, of course, I wish in an ideal world, less people would have to take these drugs. But if you needed to get by under our current system, and it doesn't look like our current system's changing anytime soon, take what you need to survive. That's my view on it. But socialism can't solve suffering. Antinatalism bad. Socialism can't completely solve suffering, but it can solve a lot of the contradictions that we have here, and it can massively decrease the human work week. They can make it so humans are no longer trapped in the rat race. And that will lead to a lot of human flourishing and a lot of innovation, right? But there will always be human suffering, of course. Thank you again, political idealist.
Now, and she wonders why in a country where we have everything we need, we're still so sick and depressed. And her answer to that question is that we've been devouring ourselves, getting too much instant gratification without having to work for it. Huberman has made similar claims. Here he is having a good old time with Jordan Peterson.
One of the absolutely pathologic situations for any animal or human is to be able to access repeated dopamine surges without effort.
You'll
sacrifice.
I disagree entirely with this thesis. I think it's really out of touch. Overconsumption is not a personal problem. It's literally just how a capitalist system works. And
Exactly. You know what happens if there aren't people to consume all of the stuff that capitalists put out? If not enough people buy the capitalist stuff, the whole system crashes. The whole system breaks. The capitalists are no longer able to produce surplus value, and they're no longer able to keep their operations going because they're not making enough money through their sales. And they'll crash. And the whole system will come crashing down if we all just stop buying things tomorrow. Right? So this is how the system works. The system mass produces these things. And sells them to us. And I think there is a problem with that. There is a problem with overconsumption, right? But it's not a problem that lies with the individual. If you are an individual, yeah, you should try and take breaks from social media. You should try and put it aside. But it's being thrown in our faces. It's being marketed to us constantly. You need the new iPad. You need the new iPhone. You need these new apps. And if you don't buy them, like I said, if people don't buy them in mass, the whole system literally breaks, right? But you'll never hear Huberman or Peterson saying that's what's wrong with our system, right? It's all, this is what's wrong with individuals. They're just lazy sheep and they just want to consume. Well, yeah, people are going to consume when the people who rule society are telling them consume. But can't critique that. Capitalism's the best system. We can never, ever question it. But if capitalism affects individuals negatively, you should yell at those individuals and tell them they're not working hard enough as they're being exploited 40 to 60 hours a week.
And a lot of people in this country do not have everything they need, but I think Huberman and Lemke's position in one of the richest cities in the US may be skewing their perspectives on this. Palo Alto also has one of the highest youth suicide rates in the country, and while Huberman and Lemke might attribute this to dopamine overload.
Yeah, the children of very wealthy people who are overindulged, I've seen that many times, many times, and it is a very sad sight.
Yeah, well, they're not optimally deprived, eh?
A less cruel explanation is that these Palo Alto kids are under immense pressure for high-octane achievement, which makes a lot of sense considering they live in the shadow of a university that, for the last century, has treated children like a prized stock of racehorses. This kind of stress to achieve or...
Right. I think there's a lot of explanations for the raising rates of depression and suicide. And this is what I mean when I say that Peterson and Huberman's view of things like this is undialectical. They are isolating the dopamine chemical and only asking themselves, only talking about depression in the framework of dopamine, this one chemical. When there are many chemicals in the brain and many external or environmental factors that affect your brain chemistry. Right? But rather than look at the system or rather than look at how these chemicals interact, they just say, how do we maximize dopamine? Right? Oh, these people are depressed. They just need to, change their diets and take an ice bath in the morning and stare at the sun when they wake up. And all of a sudden they won't be depressed anymore. Right? They'll be able to work and just be happy. And I don't think that's true. I think this lady has a much more dialectical analysis of what's causing depression. Mainly that these people are stuck in the rat race, and all they see ahead of them is a future of working to try and maintain their family's empire, get ahead, with no enjoyment. All right, let's go back to what we said earlier. Something that increases serotonin or even increases dopamine, increases your feel-good chemicals, being with family, right? Community, being together. And Peterson and Huberman claim to be against any activities that provide instant gratification, but those are healthy activities that provide instant gratification. Healthy activities that you can't partake in if you're at work 60 to 80 hours a week, right? If you're on the grind the whole time. And is the solution to spend less time with your family so you can get in an ice bath in the morning and work harder for your boss? No, the solution is to decrease work hours and allow people to spend more time with their family, to prop up more societal institutions that encourage community, that encourage being together, which, has been shown scientifically to increase human happiness, as has being outside in nature. Right, it's been shown that going for a walk in the woods and being around what's called the biosphere, meaning just nature, trees and plants, increases serotonin and increases human happiness. Right, but Peterson and even Huberman just ignore these things so they can isolate the dopamine chemical, the go chemical, the work chemical. That's what it's all about for these capitalist scientists.
Even just to make enough money to survive, which we're all under to varying degrees, is something that people want to dissociate from. So we do drugs and we binge Netflix.
Yes, and sorry if I didn't explain what the dopamine chemical was. Nam Trin says, isn't maximizing dopamine supposed to keep you calm and focused on your work, like taking Adderall? So you just keep grinding and being a good worker bee. Yes, that's what, and they frame everything, including combating depression, through the lens of dopamine. Right? This chemical that keeps you focused, that keeps you working, that keeps you being a worker bee, that keeps it so when you're at work, you're just thinking about the work you're doing and not thinking about your family at home or your friends or other things like that. So when these guys frame everything through the lens of dopamine and ignore all the other chemicals or external factors that affect brain chemistry, they're basically just encouraging people to work harder and then do what it takes to increase dopamine so they're less depressed when they're at work, right? It's an individualistic way of combating alienation and exploitation. Just take an ice bath before work. Just go stare at the sun before work. Many things which are extremely difficult to do if you actually work, if you actually have a 9 to 5. Female Rage, thank you for the $5 super chat. I'm feeling disillusioned because my coworkers are so petty and underhanded to curry favor with the boss. How do I feel class solidarity with such snakes? Well, you have to get them thinking like a class. This is the problem with a lot of Americans, is they buy into the rat race that I just got to get ahead. I just got to do more than my coworkers and suck up to the boss, and eventually I'll get rich. You have to build relationships with your coworkers till they trust you and show them over time that that's not how it works. Right, that your boss is not looking out for you. Your boss is trying to keep your wage as low as you possibly can. So, and this is the other reason that we study Marxism, right? If you read Capital, you'll see that it's in your boss's interest to keep the worker's wages as low as he possibly can so that his surplus will be maximized. And, maybe your coworkers are more friendly to the boss right now, but we've got an economic crisis coming up. We've got a crash coming up, where all the bosses are going to be forced to drive down wages and lay off workers and treat workers even more like crap than they do on a normal basis. So just trying to be empathetic towards them, get them to think as a class, and when bad things happen to them at the workplace, show them how this is systemic, right? It's not just an individual problem, it's a systemic problem, and we need to be thinking about these problems collectively as a class. Easier said than done, but I would just recommend read theory and keep building relationships with them. And Sam says, we'll probably stop calling them snakes. That's a good start. I agree. Yeah, try not to be, even though people can be infuriating, try not to get mad at them. Try not to hate them. Understand that they're just brainwashed, even if they say stupid things. And try and treat them with kindness. Thank you so much for the super chat.
And we play video games and we scroll on TikTok. That's literally why these entertainment industries exist and make so much money. They are a cope. A 2016 paper on the structural reasons people...
Exactly. This consumerism is also a cope for alienation. Right? So they're telling people to just be alienated and throw aside all the consumerism, throw aside all the easy dopamine hits Throw aside everything that you enjoy, everything that you like, so that work will seem a little bit better in comparison.
In low-income neighborhoods struggle with gambling notes that it represents one of the few actions they can take to address the lack of opportunities and freedoms that they experience. I think what they're calling dopaminergic behavior.
And you can, I mean, just walk into a casino and look around, right? It's not people gambling, especially like the slots. It's not people gambling so they can make money. It's people gambling because they get a dopamine hit, a serotonin hit. Or if they're doing, I said the slots, but if they're doing like blackjack, you know, that's a place where you can be in community with other people. I love playing blackjack, actually, because you can sit there and talk to people and meet new people. That's what people enjoy about gambling, the dopamine rush and the community that they get when they're outside of the workplace.
Behaviors have a lot less to do with.
And the key here isn't just to demonize people for partaking in these behaviors. Right? The key is to change our system so people actually feel like they have community and they have time to flourish and they have time to do the things that they enjoy, rather than being exploited 40 hours a week to 80 hours a week.
With pleasure seeking and more to do with trying to dissociate from unpleasant social realities. But if you want to get workers to motivate themselves to generate more value and not get mad about their own exploitation, a really great way to do that is to tell them a scientific story about how these behaviors are chemical problems in their individual brains. And the best way to deal with them is not to regulate corporations or give people more social services or change the system in any way, but to
learn resilience, to get in an ice bath. Right? Capitalism will be solved if we all wake up and stare at the sun in an ice bath every morning. Then we'll all enjoy working 60 hours a week instead of being with our families. Andrew Huberman cured capitalism confirmed.
Learn resilience and regulate themselves.
Abso-fruititutely. So shout out to that lady. Go follow her if you're interested in neuroscience. Slugtown. Really appreciate that. That was really, really, really well put together and well researched. She brought up multiple
book is
sources.
Essentially
brought up somebody talking about Palo Alto on Democracy Now. So really, really well done video there. Appreciate them for doing that. And it allowed me to formulate and better concretize a lot of my critiques of Andrew Huberman, because people know I've done pro-Huberman videos. I've done videos about how humans will be able to flourish more under socialism when we have more time, and when we're less exploited and alienated. But and I've implemented some of his things, like the ice bath when I'm feeling down, or I go outside and look at the sun in the morning. Like, these things do help you, you know, produce more dopamine and focus, but it's not the solution to capitalism's problems as it's kind of being pitched as. Also, Huberman's got a problem with saying things that aren't true. He was called out recently by the MMA fighter Chael Sonnen and many people within the fitness industry. We probably won't watch this whole video, but this one really exposes Huberman for saying something that's straight up false.
I know that it's Geopolitical that has, and getting every make up stories, make up videos, make up things that someone said when they didn't, because that would be the same thing as the Mark Bell podcast did to Coach Greg. And so you can't just talk about people and get everything wrong and not expect people to call you out. And so that's why I made this video, calling out Chael Sonnen for calling out Andrew Huberman and getting everything back-ass backwards. Coach Greg, in today's video.
Oh, this is the wrong video. This is one where Andrew Huberman says that he can increase your. Chael Sonnen accused him of saying that fasting or something increases your testosterone 4%, and maybe Huberman didn't actually say that. Now I can't remember which video I wanted to bring up. This guy's off the wall. He's freaking crazy. But either way, Huberman said stuff about fasting and testosterone and dopamine increase that isn't even true. But I messed up and I can't remember which video it was supposed to be. So let me see. Let me check my notes and see if I had anything else to say on Huberman. Nope. I covered everything. Okay. That's my Andrew Huberman take. Let's see what the chat has to say. What do you guys have to say? Just my camera a little bit there. Judging by his squeaky voice, I'm glad he's not recommending how to boost testosterone. That guy actually has a incredibly high testosterone levels because he's on HRT. He used to be a bodybuilder who would inject testosterone, and now he's on testosterone replacement therapy or hormone replacement therapy because if you redline yourself, if you take a bunch of steroids to just get as huge as possible, your body gets used to having testosterone injected, so it stops producing as much testosterone. So when bodybuilders go off the test, they have to go on the test and have it monitored by a doctor, and that's what that guy does. Too much dopamine and you become schizophrenic. Huh? Didn't know that. Check your history. Oh, that's a good idea. I can do that. Doucette is great, and I think we should watch more. I really like Greg Doucette. Maybe
I saw this thumbnail. 200.
Let's watch this one. Since people want to watch Greg, I really like Coach Greg. He's got a squeaky voice, and like he's purposefully like annoying and clickbaity sometimes, but he's very intelligent. If you are looking for someone to learn about fitness, I would follow Greg Doucette, and I would follow More Plates, More Dates. They're both like dude bros who are jacked and maybe don't look like scientists or even sound like scientists, but they know their stuff. I promise you guys.
% increase in muscle mass, and I said, I'm going to watch this video. If Andrew Huberman says any of this, I'm going to call him out. I'm going to call him a liar. Coach Greg, in today's video, I need to clear something up. A lot of people have been talking smack about Andrew Huberman, that he's making false claims. And you've probably seen Chael Sonnen's video talking about how he says testosterone levels go up 4-fold and so on. But he hasn't actually been saying that. And so what's actually happened, the problem is that people are misleading you with their titles. Andrew Huberman is so popular that people around the world are making videos about him. And so when you see a title and or thumbnail, you immediately think, well, this is what the video is going to be about. And you think Andrew Huberman is the guy that's saying it. And so let's take this video, for example. Neuroscientist 16 times the best protocol to use sauna. And throughout the video, it's Andrew Huberman speaking about how to use a sauna to increase your growth hormone. But guess what? I watched the entire video twice, and not once did he make a claim that it's going to help you to build muscle. But when I look at the thumbnail, all I see is this 200% increase in muscle mass. Game changer protocol. And so you see Andrew Huberman's face in the thumbnail, 200% increase in muscle mass. And so you associate that thumbnail, 200% increase in muscle mass, with a title that says 16-fold increase in growth hormone from using a sauna. And so if you're an average viewer, average consumer, you don't know if Andrew Huberman means that you're tested on how far you can walk in 6 minutes. And when they compared the placebo group to the group.
Yeah, so this is just what I said. Like I said, people taking Huberman out of context to make critiques of him that aren't based in things he actually said, which doesn't really relate to what we were talking about. All of our critiques of Huberman were based in things that he actually said, and criticizing him for not looking at the system. And only looking at individuals and how individuals function and how their brain chemistry functions under a capitalist system, while not weighing in the capitalist system part. So Coach Greg is still awesome, though. So I'm glad that we recommended Coach Greg. I did have it on 1.5 speed, yeah. It sounds like a voice filter on Instagram. Yeah, Coach Greg is an acquired taste. The first time I listened to him, I'm like, who the heck is this guy? And then I'm like, oh, man, this guy's kind of smart. This guy kind of knows his stuff. Now I listen to him every day. Burkina Faso and Mali are causing concern for AFRICOM. And agree, talk about West Africa. I mean, many people have called West Africa a Western colony. For a long time. And obviously that's monitored by AFRICOM and the U.S. system of drone warfare that's essentially maintained all over the continent of Africa, but especially West Africa. But I haven't seen too much of what's going on, but found an article here. Russia-Africa summit. So they had a Russia-Africa summit. Well, no wonder the West is freaking out about this. African countries continuing to move towards China and Russia. And I made a video the other day about Philip DeFranco's video, which was pure misinformation, claiming that Russia threatened to invade South Africa. Just an insane claim that Philip DeFranco pulled straight out of his butt, and then he was mocking the BRICS countries in the comments. He was talking about how these BRICS countries, there's no alliance there. They actually hate each other. BRICS is crumbling. They're not threatening the U.S. It's like, shut up, you freaking NATO simp. Like, go jerk off the U.S. State Department more for that NGO money, Phil. You freaking coward. The BRICS countries are continuing to grow. They're continuing to get closer, and the West is continuing to melt down about it. Philip DeFranco is nothing but a Western propagandist, so he's melting down along with them. But several African presidents are attending the Russia-Africa summit. Among them are the heads of the juntas in Mali and Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso, of course, recently overthrew Blaise Compaoré, who was the Western-backed leader, formerly the best friend of Thomas Sankara, who turned on him and killed Sankara and sold out his country to Western multinationals like a coward. And recently, when he was overthrown like the autocratic dictator he is, he was forced to apologize and held accountable for killing his best friend. So that's one of those people where if there's an afterlife, there's a special place in hell for that guy. But yeah, looks like they had a recent summit here. Lots of good stuff in Africa, definitely. He used to be milquetoast liberal. When did he become John Bolton? When the war in Ukraine started, as far as I can tell. Yeah, Phil is just scum these days. Let's actually find it. Because I've been meaning to cover this on stream. We talked about it the one day, but this TikTok actually kind of blew up, which I freaking love when I can blow up responding to Philip DeFranco. Because he's such a liar, but his videos get so many views. So I got 200,000 views on this video responding to Phil, which, thank you, algorithm gods. Please help us debunk this man's misinformation. What's hilarious is TikTok has a policy against misinformation, right? Supposedly, they don't allow misinformation. They've taken down hundreds of our videos for misinformation and deleted 7 of our accounts. But when Philip DeFranco posts blatant misinformation, like when he said that Russia blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, or when he says that Russia is invading South Africa, TikTok's okay with it. Because misinformation's okay as long as you're a neolib, as long as you're a NATO simp. So I love pointing out the hypocrisy there. They literally deleted 320,000 accounts that they said were Russian accounts spreading misinformation. 320,000 accounts. So any socialist or anti-imperialist or anybody critical of NATO and the U.S. State Department got systematically banned, while this liar's videos get boosted by the algorithm. So it's just disgusting what Phil is doing and how he's sold out to the State Department. And it makes me so happy when we can get a viral video responding to him.
Declare war on South.
So yeah, go boost this video if you have a TikTok account. I'll post her in the chat here. Boost us over the liar, the deceiver, the NATO simp, Philip the State Department.
Africa.
No, they didn't. This video from Philip DeFranco has...
You just threatened to declare war on South Africa.
No, they didn't. This video from Philip DeFranco has millions of views, but it is blatant misinformation. DeFranco claims that Vladimir Putin threatened to declare war on South Africa if he's not allowed to visit the country, which is a bold-faced lie. In reality, Putin had planned to visit South Africa, but the U.S. said that there is a warrant out for Putin's arrest with the International Criminal Court that South Africa is a part of. But in response response to U.S. pressure to arrest Putin, South Africa said they would not be arresting him because arresting another head of state would be a declaration of war. And there's absolutely no evidence that Putin or anybody at the Kremlin threatened South Africa with war if they didn't allow Putin to visit. And in fact, both countries mutually decided to cancel Putin's visit in order to avoid increasing global hostilities, aka provoking the United States and NATO. And despite this lack of evidence, Philip DeFranco decided to tell his millions of viewers that South Africa and Russia are on the brink of war and use this as an opportunity to trash the Belt and Road Initiative, which is an alliance of countries aimed at developing themselves and largely countering the US-dominated global financial system. So American media has been eager to portray the BRICS countries as disunited, hostile, and irrational. But
oops, I had myself muted. So here's Phil in the comments. BRICS has never been stronger and more united, not mocking the BRICS countries. They think they're as strong as the US. They think they can stop being neo-colonies. These idiot countries. Give us your resources, you idiot countries. Why are you forming an alliance against the US? We're benevolent. What have we ever done wrong on the global stage? Like, what a scumbag, trying to bully the BRICS country, sitting from the heart of the American empire that's massacred millions in order to maintain its global domination, and mocking these countries who are forming an alliance against the U.S. I mean, what a colonial attitude to take towards BRICS and towards China and towards South Africa and towards Russia. This is your brain on American exceptionalism. I really can't explain how much contempt I have for Philip DeFranco. This is somebody I watched since 2006. This is somebody whose YouTube vlogs I used to watch when I was little. And to see him just sell out, just become an absolute contemptible coward with no spine, has been truly disgusting and truly disappointing. And I hope one day Phil watches one of my videos and sees that his former fans now hold him in the utmost contempt.
like claiming that Russia and South Africa are on the brink of war with each other when they're not. That's misinformation. And TikTok has a policy against misinformation, which they've used to delete 320,000 different accounts, including just about every socialist on this app. Yet they continue to allow Philip DeFranco and other political commentators who often align themselves with NATO to spread blatant misinformation with no evidence. Baseless conspiracy theories, one might say. Phil should retract this video and explain to his millions of impressionable young followers what is actually going on between Russia, South Africa, and the Belt and Road countries. I'd be happy to help if you want to sit down and have a discussion, Phil.
He won't. He won't. Someone who works for him will probably see this video, but they don't want to have a discussion. Apparently he made an anti-Yeonmi Park video. Yeah, Yeonmi Park must be working with too many Republicans. She went on the Jordan Peterson show and the Joe Rogan show, so now the libs are turning on her and pointing out the millions of obvious holes and lies in her stories, as if it's difficult. As if there haven't been holes in Yeonmi Park's story since 2015 when she emerged. Like ridiculous holes. Great clip, Eddie. I shared that discourse with my coworkers. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed that clip. I'll have to make some more calm, measured, reasoned responses to Phil DeFranco. All right, Jacob sent us a TikTok here in the Twitch chat. Let's react to this. I'm going to speed it up a little bit, Jacob.
People in the same position as the evil capitalists, especially if you believe that social pressure is one of the determining factors of human character, which the Marxists certainly believe, then why wouldn't you assume that the proletariat would immediately become as or more corrupt than the capitalists?
This is one of the moments where you realize that Jordan Peterson didn't read the entirety of the Communist Manifesto in his preparation for his debate with Slavoj Žižek. Like, I never really noticed this moment in the debate until now. But
that's a good point, Jacob. We make fun of that man for only reading the manifesto and then pretending like he's an expert on Marx, because what kind of intellectual would do that? What kind of academic would do that? Usually if you're getting into a field that you're not that well read on, you'll say that, well, this isn't really my field. This isn't my area of expertise. I haven't researched this that much. That's what academics do. But Peterson claims to be an academic, claims to be an intellectual, and yet speaks confidently on things he hasn't understood or he hasn't researched. But not only, did he only read the Communist Manifesto for his Marxism debate, I don't even think he finished the manifesto. I mean, I think 35 pages of reading was too much for JP. He would rather tweet weird haikus.
But this dumb argument he made, it really reminds me of that time when Sacha Baron Cohen tried to prank Bernie Sanders, and Sacha is all like in a disguise, and he's sitting next to Bernie, and he's like, well, why don't we just put the... And Bernie's like, well, that doesn't make any sense, because there's...
That is what it is. That is what it is, because Peterson's saying, we just want to make the proletariat capitalists, and won't they become corrupt once they become capitalists? And it's like, no, dude, the idea is that the means of production will be owned collectively. So the proletarians who work the hardest can be rewarded the most, or who, provide the most value can be rewarded with that value, rather than, having to sell your labor in the labor market, which... we know all the things wrong with that. It's just designed to create surplus value for a capitalist. But the idea is ameliorating that contradiction. So rather than having a small 1% of people who own the means of production, and then the rest of the people has to sell their labor to them in order to survive, the means of production are owned collectively. So there's no contradiction between classes. You alleviate the class contradiction at the core of capitalist society, right? And you transform it into a new kind of society. It's not just taking the proletarians and making them the capitalists and then making the capitalists work for us or something.
Statistics, you can't just put 99% of the people into the 1%. It will just create a different 1%.
Sir, I don't mean to interrupt, but rather than complain about the 1% or the 0.1%, why not make the rest of America and put them into the 1%?
Well, if you put everybody into the 1%, there wouldn't be the 1%.
Well, no, it still would be.
No, it wouldn't be. The rest of the population, by definition, they're not in the 1%, they're the rest of the population. But all of the population is 100%.
All right, so this is simple math. If you have 1% here, 1%, you have 99.
Yeah.
And if you move the 9 in there, you have 19.
And Bernie's just sitting there trying to explain to him how that's not what socialism is. Here's this idealist academic trying to make a similar Sacha Baron Cohen prank argument, but he is unfortunately serious about it. But getting real theoretical here.
Thank you very much, Ill State Fishing, for the Power Hour support. Appreciate the super chat so much. Everything we do at Midwestern Marx and the Institute would be impossible without your super chats, without the support on patreon.com/MidwesternMarx, without our YouTube members. So can't thank you guys enough for that. ILL State Fishing has been a fan since the beginning, or been a comrade since the beginning. I hate using the word fan. You guys aren't fans. We're trying to collectively build a movement to sublate the current state of things, to change the existing society. So you're not my fans, you're my comrades. But thank you so much for the Power Hour support. Out right now, but wanted to show my support. Thank you, Sebastian. Sebastian, I mentioned you earlier in the stream. Unfortunately, you weren't there. We've gotten multiple videos that you suggested queued up to watch today, but maybe I will put a couple of them on the back burner for when you can watch the stream. But the video we just watched about Andrew Huberman was from Sebastian. It was fantastic. So thank you very much. Thank you for the consistent financial support. And thank you for sending videos in the Discord, which, by the way, if you want to join the Discord and send me videos to react to, you can become a $1 Patreon supporter or a $10 Patreon supporter. Then you'll get Carlos's book, too. But $1 supporters get to join the Discord, and we'll never kick you out, even if you stop supporting us on Patreon. There's a $1 barrier to entry. And that helps us keep trolls away and just keep people who actually want to learn. So that's why we have a barrier, a pay barrier. How do I meet local communists? Thank you so much for the super chat, Female Rage. Appreciate it. You should join a communist party. Yeah, join the PS. I mean, it'll depend on your area, right? In some areas, the DSA is the most radical. Figure out what kind of parties are active in your area. Go to a meeting. and then, kind of judge. I would just say who has the best understanding of theory, who has the best understanding of Marxism, whether it's PSL, CPUSA, or DSA even, and then join them and understand there are major problems with all the communist political parties in the United States right now. And they need to spend more time studying Marxism for sure. But yeah, that's a good way to meet communists and start working together. Thoughts on Shoigu's visit to the DPRK? Thank you so much, AJ, or Gus from Breaking Bad. I thought it was awesome. There were some cool edits that were being made of Shoigu checking out the fireworks above the DPRK, but it's awesome. It shows that the BRICS alliance, counter to what Philip DeFranco, the lying NATO propagandist, was saying, the BRICS alliance is strong. These countries are stronger than ever. Even a socialist republic like the DPRK and a country that isn't socialist like Russia, but is moving away from neoliberalism in the capitalist world, their alliance is strong. And that's really Russia showing support for the sovereignty of the DPRK, and the DPRK implicitly, supporting the Russian SMO, if not explicitly supporting it.
Marx never advocates
Thank you for all the super chats, everyone. Thank you so much.
for the proletarians to be put in the same exact positions as capitalists. I mean, yes, of course, if proletarians or poor people were to be put into the same exact positions as capitalists, they would become just like capitalists. Maybe they would be as corrupt, or maybe they wouldn't. But that has never been what Marx or Engels has advocated for in any given circumstance. He doesn't want the proletariat to become a new line of capitalists. He wants to destroy capitalism itself. And he says so in the...
Under socialism, unless you have a disability or an inability to work or you're elderly, if you don't work, you don't eat. Under capitalism, if you own capital, you can eat everything and you don't have to work at all. There's the difference.
manifesto itself. Literally on the second to last page of the first chapter of the manifesto, Marx writes, "The proletarians cannot become masters of the productive forces of society except by abolishing their own previous mode of appropriation, and thereby also every other previous mode of appropriation. They have..."
Communism, I just want to answer. Communism will never take root in the West. What do you call this? We have 100 people watching a communist stream right now. We have 35,000 subscribers. We had 400,000 followers on TikTok before the NATO operatives and State Department officials who run the app had to ban us. Right? That is communism taking root. And those roots are growing with every new person who joins a stream like this, with every new person who picks up theory like Jacob. I mean, 2 years ago, Jacob wasn't a communist. 2 years later, he's making videos about theory, explaining and educating people about theory. That is literally communism taking root in this country. And it hasn't flourished yet. It hasn't grown into a tree. We haven't, achieved a revolution or a communist society. But the roots of communism are growing every day, right? It's taking root everywhere. More people now say that they support socialism, or young people, than people say they support capitalism, right? That is communism taking root. And we've had an anti-communist country for a long time, since the Red Scare and McCarthyism. But dialectically, that is transforming into its opposite. We're transforming from an anti-communist country into a country where communism is taking root and where it's growing in popularity day by day by day, right? And here's what happens. There's 100 people watching this stream, 106 people now, getting educated about theory, learning Marxism, learning socialism, learning communism, learning what we call revolutionary science or the Marxist worldview. Now the 108 people who are in this stream, as they continue to develop and as they continue to read on their own and learn, they can go educate other people. They can educate their friends, their coworkers, their family. And then the people that they educate can educate their friends and coworkers and family. And like that, socialism and communism takes hold of the working class. Revolution takes hold of the working class exponentially. And that is what you call communism taking root. That is what you call laying the basis for revolution. And that is what is happening in the United States right now.
Nothing of their own to secure and to fortify. their mission is to destroy all previous securities for and insurances of individual property, meaning that the proletariat as a class by itself cannot liberate ourselves except by destroying capitalism. I mean, sure, some individual proletariats can rise into the middle class, some may even rise into the capitalist class, but the proletariat as a class, as a whole, cannot liberate itself without destroying capitalism itself. Marx later writes on the same exact page, the proletariat, the lowest stratum of our present society, cannot stir, cannot raise itself up without the whole superincumbent strata of official society being sprung into the air. So very clearly, Marx thinks that the whole proletariat can liberate itself by destroying the economic foundations of capitalism and even the entire superstructure of capitalism. Now, for those of you who want a proper Marxist response to Jordan Peterson in this exact debate, check out this video by Comrade Eddie Liger Smith over at
Woo! Let's go! Comrade Eddie Liger Smith. The Great Soviet Union winning. No, but for real, the other thing about capitalism is it commodifies everything. You know, including the means of production. The means of production are sold by a certain capitalist in a market to other capitalists. And, you know, that creates conditions for a lot of crises. But once the means of production are owned collectively, once they're owned by the mass of society, capital ceases to function that way. The means of production cease to be commodified in that way. And it's a total structural change of the way that production is carried out and the way that society works, which will then, as Jacob said, lead to massive changes in the superstructure, right? And it's far, far different than just making all the proletarians into capitalists. Yeah, I could go deeper on that, but
Midwestern Marx. And especially check out this video by Dr. Tamur Rahman, who is a Marxist professor from
how does my video have more views than this video?
Pakistan, who made the
I mean, I appreciate you all for watching our videos and stuff, but my critique of Jordan Peterson, it's based in Marxism.
Check out this video by Comrade Eddie Liger Smith over at Midwestern Marx. And especially check
I use a lot of the arguments from this video. Dr. Rahman gives an amazing response to Jordan Peterson. So if you like my video, I recommend you also check out this one. I'm probably a little bit more entertaining than this guy. I'm a little bit more flamboyant. But his critiques of Peterson are really, really good, and he makes them in an academic, intellectual fashion, which really exposes Jordan Peterson for what he is, which is an intellectual or academic fraud. Somebody who pretends to be, you know, a well-read intellectual who's studied and researched all the things that he's talking about, when in reality, you know, he skimmed the Communist Manifesto at best before pretending to be an expert in Marxism.
This video by Dr. Tamur Rahman, who is a Marxist professor from Pakistan, who made the same argument I did, which, to be honest, this TikTok was inspired by his response to Jordan Peterson. So with that being said, take care, continue to read theory, and solidarity, comrades.
Continue to read theory, baby. I love it. Great job, Jacob. Great job. I think the comparison to Sacha Baron Cohen was very good. I hope you're fine with me using a screen cap of you being frustrated. Of course, that was perfect. That was hilarious. It was a screen cap of me going like this. Yes, and we really, really appreciate you sharing our stuff on TikTok, Jacob. I appreciate the TikToks that you're putting out because it's good stuff. It's good educational content. And also, I love that you're shouting out Midwestern Marx. This is something that we've wanted to encourage the audience to do, is take clips of us and post them on TikTok. But you making a unique video that shouts out my video is even better than that. It actually brings more people in than if you were just to post clips of me. So you have my permission to use anything you want, you know, even if you want to download our videos and take clips of them or just upload them straight up, like, you know, consider everything that we produce public use, you know, and that goes for anybody. So appreciate you. And yeah, great video. I liked it. Good critique. All right, let's I don't want to cover all the videos that Sebastian sent us because he's not here today, but we do need to cover this one. So the UPS workers recently got a tentative agreement to the contract that they wanted, which is, you know, was a huge victory for labor. It turns out that they're probably not going to go on strike because they got a lot of the concessions that they wanted just by threatening strike. So this means more pay for part-time workers, different benefits, and especially the trucks are now going to have air conditioning in them. So a lot of these UPS drivers were driving around in the summer heat, as you know, we're hitting record highs in temperatures, without air conditioning. The company didn't want to give them AC, and that was too much of a cost for them to spend. So that's one of the things that they've won. And you can see here, this video is going to show why that was so vital for them. Why, I mean, you can imagine why they needed freaking air conditioning in the summer. It's hot. But the UPS trucks are actually even hotter than a lot of the other delivery trucks. Check this out.
UPS trucks, 25 degrees warmer. Yo, let's check the sidewalk out. 108 degrees. Let's see how hot the FedEx is because it's painted white. All right, the FedEx truck, that's 105 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's check out the darker UPS truck. 137.
137 degrees. Like, that's so hot, if you touched it on accident with your elbow, you're going to get a burn.
37. Let's check out the darker.
So to all these capitalists who have never worked a day in their life, or these right-wing conservative political pundits, the Ben Shapiros of the world, who like to act like tough guys, but they're really swollen, pompous nerds with no muscle. You know, they'll talk like, oh, you need air conditioning. What happened to America? America's gotten so soft. We used to be tough. We used to go to work with no AC. Yeah, their trucks are literally 137 degrees, guys. I'd love to see Ben Shapiro or Dave Rubin or any of these pompous bastards drive around in a UPS truck for a full workday, let alone weeks, you know, 5 days a week for years.
Check the sidewalk out. 108 degrees. Let's see how hot the FedEx is because it's painted white.
So the UPS truck is like 30 degrees hotter than the FedEx truck. 30 degrees.
All right, the FedEx truck, that's 105 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's check out the darker UPS truck. 137. 137. So this UPS truck is 25 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than the FedEx truck. The FedEx truck, because it's painted white, has like natural air conditioning.
Crazy. So they were working with no air conditioning in extremely hot vehicles that were extra hot because they're brown, because they're not white like the FedEx trucks. Man, that's a lot. Yeah, that's like when you touch your seatbelt and it burns you. I think you touch the side of the truck with your elbow and it burns you getting in. And I've been, ever since the UPS strikes have kicked off, and we've actually got someone in our audience, Cade Grenade, who works at FedEx. I notice every time I see the trucks or the workers, they're drenched in sweat, dude. They're like trying to get all their packages. I laugh, but it's not funny. They're delivering all their packages drenched in sweat, trying to do it fast enough to make the company happy. And the company can't even splurge and give them freaking air conditioning. That is capitalism, right? That is, I mean, to go back to Jordan Peterson's point, right? Under a worker-owned economy, the workers are just going to say, we don't care that much about producing surplus value. We're going to have air conditioning, right? If the workers own the means of production, the trucks are a part of that, and they're going to install air conditioning in the trucks. They don't care if it costs a little bit more. But under capitalism, where you're incentivized to sell as much as you can while keeping your costs as low as possible, the capitalists, the people who don't work, are incentivized to cut costs and get rid of air conditioning for their workers who do work. Right? So socialism isn't just making the UPS workers into capitalists. It's making it so that the UPS trucks, the means of production, are owned by the workers themselves. So they can install air conditioning. So they don't have the same contradictory incentives that are created by capitalism. So this is, again, where Peterson just doesn't understand what he's talking about. And where we need socialism. Also, this video reminded me of this classic meme. It's like 10 degrees outside. That UPS truck was like 137 degrees. They need air conditioning so it can be around 60 degrees, maybe 70 degrees. He meant degrees, but he said degrees. For those who didn't get the joke, you're welcome. I'm kind of a comedic genius. Sorry, I just read another weird meme. This came up too. When I saw you, I was taking a bath. You what? I was taking a bath when I saw you. Like I was stunned by your beauty. Oh, instead of taking a back, I was taking a bath. Where's Noah when you need him? Where's Noah to laugh at these dad jokes? Thank God for my sound effects. Thank God for my sound effects. I can take the place of real friends. Oh, shit. I get it now. I didn't get that one at first either. I thought the guy just said, like, I was taking a bath, and then I looked at you. I'm like, that's kind of creepy. I'm like, oh, he meant taking a bath. Where's Noah when you need him? Exactly. I needed Noah twice for this. I needed Noah when we were talking about Andrew Huberman, so we could explain his life as a carpenter and how Andrew Huberman's dopamine tricks won't improve his life that much. And I need Noah to laugh at my dad jokes. Coffin skating on the coffin of capitalism. That soundboard is something else. I'm glad you like it. We've used it a lot today, haven't we? This is what I've been doing anytime Carlos makes a good point. Ding! Good job. Or when something goes over Noah's head. Or when he forgets something. I've got a lot nowadays. One more. Oop. Maybe that's what I should start doing when Carlos makes a good point. And you need Noah to point a pen. Absolutely. I need that too. Any soundboards for the bootlickers? Just this.
You suck. You suck.
That's what we play when Jordan Peterson comes up on stream. You got to learn through denial and error. Actually, you got to learn through denial and error. Joke drums. But add bass and Patrio Muerte in the soundboard. Okay. I'm literally writing that down because that's a good idea. I used to have one of me just going bass. Maybe I'll have to add that one back. It's kind of stupid though. It's just like I'm like, why wouldn't I just go bass? Like just say it, but it's kind of funny when it's a soundboard, I guess. I guess. Who is the most based ML revolutionary? Probably Lenin, because he's the one who, you got to go either Marx or Lenin, but Lenin led a successful revolution, so I think Lenin's the ultimate ML revolutionary at this point. Him or Mao. I mean, Mao almost takes the dub now because China's still socialist. Thank you so much, Female Rage, for yet another super chat. 8 super chats today. Can't thank you all enough for that. Our project is reliant on the super chats and our Patreon supporters and our YouTube members. Couldn't do what we do without you guys. It costs money to produce the content we produce. So we appreciate all of you who spam click our ads or who turn off your ad blockers when you're watching Midwestern Marks. And, of course, all of you who send super chats, support us on Patreon, support me on Buy Me a Coffee. Appreciate y'all. The irony of the DW crew griping about how lazy, Daily Wire crew, griping about how lazy people are these days in response to TikToks when they get paid to spew shit behind a camera. Exactly. It's like, dude, like, I'm a streamer. This stuff is not as difficult, and, this isn't even my full-time job. Like, doing a news and politics show is not as difficult as working concrete. Right? Just because you have more money than people doesn't mean that you work harder than them. So who are you, Matt Walsh or Ben Shapiro, these just swollen white guys who have no definition in their bodies at all because they haven't worked hard a day in their life? Who are you to call the rest of America lazy? To call the industrial proletariat lazy and not hardworking? Or what they try and do, is turn the working class against each other. Like, screw those Starbucks baristas who are unionizing, right? They're lazy. They don't work a real job. When in reality, it's just different sections of the working class, right? And it's a different form of labor that doesn't, isn't super, super physically costly, like working concrete or roofing or something. But Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh and these guys aren't a part of the industrial working class. They're not blue collar workers. They're not industrial workers, manufacturing workers, agricultural workers. And they sit behind a desk and talk for an hour to 2 hours a day, repeating the same talking points over and over again, and then act like they're tough guys. Ben Shapiro won a few debates against 20-year-olds by going to college campuses and has acted like he's the toughest man on the planet for it ever since. I mean, like, really, imagine if me and Carlos went to Carlos is a professor. So imagine if Carlos, every time he debated or had a conversation with one of his students, he uploaded it to YouTube and was like, college kid liberal exposed, conservative college kid exposed, destroyed by facts and logic in a debate. Like, of course, you're a professor, you're 26 or 27 years old, or Shapiro was in his 30s when he was doing that. Of course, you're going to have more knowledge than the 20-year-old students who are there to learn, right? The goal should be to educate them or to learn together, to educate each other, not to own them, not to destroy them. Like, or if we did the Steven Crowder, if Carlos and I went to a college campus and said, socialism is the way to go, prove me wrong. You know how many destroyed moments we would get? You know how many kids we would own just because they're 18? We would get a bunch of 18-year-old libertarians who have never worked a day in their life, who would come up and try and give us just, standard talking points about socialism evil, capitalism good. You know how many of those people we could destroy and then upload it? Like, you're not smart for debating college students. Spot on, Ben Shapiro impression.
Thank you. Hypothetically, if I were 35 years old and I was to go to a college campus and I had practiced rhetoric for years on end and was groomed by multi-billionaires to be a propagandist, hypothetically, could I destroy a 19-year-old in a debate? Think about it. Hypothetically, if I were a Barbie girl and I were to live in a Barbie world, would it be plastic? And if so, how would it be fantastic? You can brush my hair, undress me anywhere.
I swear I was the first person to say that Ben Shapiro looks like Linus from Shark Boy and Lava Girl. And now that's become like a meme. right? Like everybody says he looks like Linus. I made a TikTok about this a while ago and said that Ben Shapiro is Linus, just grown up. And I just really want to take credit for that, you know? See if they got a side by side. I just feel like I was the first person to bring this up, and now people are stealing my content. I'm just kidding. I take people's tweets all the time and just make TikToks about that, so I can't complain about people taking my TikTok jokes and turning them into tweets, but I always give people credit for their work. But is Ben Shapiro going to reprise his role as Linus Minus
in the new Shark Boy and Lava Girl? Hypothetically, were you to destroy my dream journal?
Hey, look, there's me. Ha-ha! When I search Ben Shapiro as Linus, I literally come up. Okay. At least I'm getting credit. At least I'm getting credit for my epic memes. I'm on iFunny.
Would rather everyone be equally poor than unequally rich, and they keep saying so over and over. Now, Ben, I know you just make stuff up to fit your political ideology,
I don't even remember this.
but let me read to you from the Manifesto of the Communist Party by Karl Marx and Freddie Engels. You might learn something. It says the proletariat will use political power to take all capital from the bourgeoisie and increase the total productive forces as rapidly as possible. Not get rid of the productive forces and make everyone equally poor, but increase them and make them more powerful so everybody can be more rich. And Marx says earlier that the current capitalist relations of production can no longer increase the productive forces and become a fetter on it. It actually prevents the creation of more wealth. So socialists want to bring manufacturing jobs back to America versus capitalists outsource those jobs to poorer countries to make more profit. Please stop lying to people and open a book. Ben Shapiro is lying.
All right, so that isn't the one where I called him Linus, but that's a pretty good video. I'm glad that video made it to iFunny. Not sure why that comes up when I search Ben Shapiro as Linus, but it's a good one. Now people on iFunny can learn about increasing the productive forces, I suppose. Or do what Caitlin Bennett does and pose with a gun for a college yearbook at a campus that is famous for shooting and shitting your pants at a college frat party. Yeah. I bet you if I ever met Caitlin Bennett at a debate or something, though, I could rizz her up. I would at least try because it would be funny. Sorry, Stevie. Sorry to my girlfriend, but, you know, if I could get, like, Caitlin Bennett to agree to go on a date with me as a communist, I feel like that would be really hilarious. And then I could expose her. Eddie's Ben Shapiro impression needs to be a new TikTok playlist, a whole series even. All right, I'll make a new playlist. I'll make a playlist of
Hypothetically, suppose that I was a grifter.
Okay. Let me see. One more thing. One more story today, folks. Short one. But we got to get this out because it's becoming not as relevant because it was a little bit ago. But in the same week, we had 2 Congress people freeze. Just have like a mental break. One from the Republican side and one from the Democratic side. And this is just a perfect encapsulation here of the people running our country. Right? Not only are they old, not only do they lean towards white supremacy, but not only are they corrupt, and not only do they lean towards white supremacy, but they're so old. They're so old. They're like being pushed around in wheelchairs and just prodded by their corporate assistants. So this is Mitch McConnell, the Turtle Man Mitch, just having a Vietnam flashback or something in the middle of his speech.
After finishing the NDAA this week, been good bipartisan cooperation and a string of
when you realize that you're actually a turtle mid-speech, when you realize that the youth of America is embracing socialism and communism mid-speech, when you realize you've wasted your whole life being a puppet for the military-industrial complex and now you're going to die soon mid-speech?
Okay, Mitch? Anything else you want to say, or should we just go back to your place?
Come on, Mitch. Come with us. Let's go back to bed. I feel bad for laughing. I don't. This guy's a war criminal. This guy has pushed for more corporate control of our government. He has been a warrior for capital, a warrior for corporate America, a warrior for the Koch brothers his entire life. He's dedicated his life to making working class people's lives worse. And he's still in charge of our freaking government as his chin is melting off of his body.
Do you want to say anything else to the press? Let's go back to
You can hear someone say stroke. I mean, that looks like a stroke, right? That seems like that's what it is. I hear a lady in the pink suit say he's dead. Mitch he's dead. Mitch has passed.
Go ahead, John.
So this is we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the IRA.
What the fuck? They don't even acknowledge it, dude. These people are so anti-human. They literally just shuffle Mitch to the back and then have someone else take over. A younger corporate stooge, a younger corporate suit just takes over for him. And they put him behind pink suit lady. Like, go bring him to the hospital. He just had a stroke. They're like, sorry, guys, we're going to continue this press conference later. No, they just shuffle him to the back like this is something that happens every day.
And, of course...
what the hell? So anyways, that's
Senate minority.
That happened to him. Almost everybody saw it. I don't know if as many people saw the Democratic freeze, but Dianne Feinstein, 90 years old, the oldest member of Congress, I believe, who's been just wheelchaired around to vote for more war and more funding to Ukraine and cutting benefits for working class people. And she was just supposed to vote here on the higher military budget, increasing defense spending to nearly $900 billion. Because that's what we need in a country where 40,000 people are dying every year because they don't have access to basic health insurance. More weapons, more foreign interventions. So, of course, Dianne Feinstein's going to vote yes. But all she's supposed to do here is say yay or nay, right? Yes or no. And she starts going on a tangent, starts giving a speech until her aides have to intervene. So 2 meltdowns by the people running our country in 1 week.
I note the presence of a quorum. We will now vote to report the Defense Appropriations Bill favorably, subject to amendment. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Feinstein.
The Crypt Keeper.
You say aye.
Pardon me?
Aye.
Yeah.
Just say
I would like to support a yes vote on this. It provides $823 billion. That's an increase of $26 billion for the Department of Defense. And
it's more than that. It's like 8. She doesn't even get the numbers right. It's like 189 billion.
He's submitted.
Yeah, just say aye.
Okay, just
Great.
aye.
Thank you.
Senator Durbin.
And the funniest
You
part
just heard,
about that
you
for
just
me,
heard competitor,
your
Vivek
competitor
Ramaswamy say that he would still
hush, hush, hush. The funniest part about that for me is that her aides are like, Dianne, just say aye. Okay? We're voting for the military budget. You can't say no to this. This is America. Your whole job as a congressperson is just to vote for more war. Right? That we don't need the speech. Just say aye. So they wheel this decrepit old crypt keeper, this 90-year-old lady, into Congress so she can vote for more war. so she can vote to give Victoria Nuland more money for her proxy war that she's waging against Russia. Right? So they're basically robots. Right? That's the whole purpose. You can have Congress people in America whose brains are completely melting, who have strokes in the middle of trying to vote. It doesn't matter because they're just going to vote for more war, more imperialism, and more cuts for social programs and anything that benefits the working class. So her aides can just be like, just vote aye, Diane. But those are the people running our country, dude. It's not the sharpest minds. It's not people thinking up new solutions. It's not people criticizing and critiquing our system or deeply studying our system so that they can make it a little bit better. It's these corporate ghouls who have been bought and paid for by the corporations, 20 to 40 years ago, and are still serving those corporations honorably as their brains are melting, as they're having strokes, as they can barely form a coherent sentence, or as they try and go on long speeches and tangents when their owners, the corporate class, just wants them to vote for more war. Just say aye, Diane. Just say aye. So Caitlin Johnstone, a friend of Midwestern Marx, one of my favorite journalists out there today. Support Caitlin Johnstone. She's an independent journalist. She has her own Patreon page. Publishes for Consortium News all the time. Just a fantastic journalist. She said, Capitol Hill is an assisted living facility for psychopaths. It's where people who receive sexual gratification from dropping military explosives on civilians go to wait for the sweet embrace of death. The whole place smells like urine and night terrors. So that was her response to two of our congressional representatives having mental breakdowns in the same week. And I just think that sums it up really well. I think that's how we should look at Capitol Hill in Washington from now on. It's an assisted living facility for psychopaths, with a few youngsters ready to inherit the mantle of empire. The few AOCs. Caitlin Johnstone is great. She is. Term limits and age limits needed ASAP. Yeah, honestly. All right, y'all. Well, that's all I've got for you today. I had a couple other things, but we'll react to them later. Thank you for the 8 people who sent super chats, or the 8 super chats we got. Appreciate you all so very much. Our project would be impossible without you. Patreon.com/MidwesternMarks if you want to support us more. $10 Patreon supporters and $10 YouTube members get a copy of Carlos's book, which I will grab. The Purity Fetish and the Crisis of Western Marxism. So you can also buy that on our website, MidwesternMarks.com, which hopefully is back up. It was down the other day for some reason. Yeah, it is back up. So you can get that on Patreon or on the website. I don't know if there's anything else I should shout out. I want one. Well, $10. That's all it costs. And you can get one. It's a fantastic book. Very essential, I feel like, for people who want to change the modern system, for people who want to lead a revolutionary movement against capitalism. This is a critique of the American left, or the Western left, and everything that they need to do going forward. So, yeah, that's available now. I just wanted to shout that out. But other than that, we'll see you next time, y'all. Have a great one. I'm going to save up. That would be cool to read, not going to lie. Yeah, it is. I hope you like it. I think the ebook is actually a little bit cheaper. So either way, that's all I got. Much love, everybody. Solidarity forever. Onward to socialism.